Our first keynote speaker comes to us from BBVA Compass, who, with their recent acquisition of Simple, is working hard to push the envelope on retail banking. Here to share his thoughts on how BBVA is leveraging the booming fintech scene and fostering a culture of innovation, please welcome BBVA Compass's Chairman and CEO, Manolo Sanchez.
Well, good morning. I do apologize for not having the Silicon Valley attire on, but I do have an Apple Watch on my wrist that gives me some wiggle room there. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank the CFSI organization for inviting me to this event. And what I want to share with you all today is how we are at BBVA Compass taking advantage of the digital revolution in banking and finding ways to meet the needs of the underbanked, underserved in new ways, in ways that are more responsive and responsible. And we do that anchored on our own philosophy about banking. Our mission statement at BBVA worldwide has been, we work for a better future for people since the turn of the century. And folks that came up with this mission statement really in the year 2000 when BBVA was put together after a merger, were very, I believe they had a great foresight because to have a mission statement that really does not talk about finances and necessarily narrows the scope of our mission and really talks about better future for stakeholders in our business is very inspiring. It's very ambitious as well. So that's kind of the main thing, the main drive of my presentation. I will talk about technology and how we're thinking about technology. I'll set the stage as well from that perspective. So there are some forward-looking statements here that those of you that are familiar with the SEC rules and other potential investors in our bank need to be aware of some this disclosure. So I'll start by just giving you at least some information about who we are. Some of you may not be familiar with our organization. So I'll start with a quick overview. We are a large multinational organization, which has a very unique value proposition at this day and age. It's a rare species. It's a company that believes that we can create value add by running retail banks in multiple jurisdictions. So it's unusual this day and age to have banks that still think that you can run a bank in Turkey and a bank in Spain and a bank in Mexico and a bank in Argentina and create a common denominator for the business. So we are very diversified for that reason. About 50% of our business is in emerging markets, which is a great source of intelligence for us as well. We see a lot of our ideas are coming from markets like Mexico or Turkey. So it's not really, the world is not running from the developed world to the emerging markets, but the other way around. The other thing about our organization, also it's a rarity in our league, is we did not take any government assistance during the crisis. No TARP, no bailout monies in Spain, because as some of you probably associate Spanish banks with financial crisis too. We did not have to do that because we, well, for a number of reasons, which we don't have the time to go on, but basically we did our job in a way that was responsible of, and we were able to navigate through the difficulties. So now about the U.S., we started investing in the U.S. in 2004. We bought a bank, a first bank in the U.S. Was called Laredo National Bank in Laredo, Texas. Since then, we've made another 5 acquisitions, and total investment we've made in the U.S. is $13 billion. Which, with that, we have created one of the largest banks, regional banks in the Sun Belt. We are also the 4th largest bank in Texas and the 4th largest bank in all the Texas MSAs and the major MSAs, including the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, Houston, as well as San Antonio and Austin. Now, one thing I want to share about our strategy, when we invested in the banks, which were 2004 through 2007, this was the top of the market, and $13 billion was a lot of money. And so I want to share with you the recipe of the success of that strategy is that if we had put those $13 billion into California or Florida or subprime, I would not be talking to you today because that would have blown out. Not that, at the time there was a lot of toxic real estate assets in those markets, and of course subprime was a foul business to be in that also would have taken us down. But we invested our money in Texas. Texas is the second largest economy in the nation. It's been a very prosperous market. As you know, it's created well over a third of all the jobs in the U.S. in this last decade. So our tagline is banking on a brighter future. That gives you a sense, so that's our value proposition to our clients. And again, this is very much linked to the idea that we work for a better future for our clients. So let me now give you, just really explore some of the technology dilemmas and challenges and opportunities that we see on the horizon. I'll start by talking about smartphones. And you wonder, what's the deal with smartphones? Well, I think you all have been talking about the underserved and the unbanked this past days, and the evidence suggests that we have a lot of underbanked, underserved households in the country, about 28%. Folks that don't have enough money to cut through the system or work through the system, that don't trust banks, that find that the value prop at the banks are not acceptable, the fees are too high. But one of the things you've been also talking about is how these households are really adopting technology, and this is a very important thing to keep in mind, because it may be counterintuitive to think that underserved, underbanked means they are not have not embraced technology. It's quite the opposite. So that's the penetration of smartphones among this group, this part of the society is on the slide, and I want to illustrate why smartphones are important. For one thing, they have redefined convenience. Now we all have a bank in our pocket and also in our wrist, as you know, with the Apple Watch. For sure, you can use your Apple Pay to pay now out of your wrist, which, by the way, is an interesting challenge to our CRA regime that we have in place, because the CRA was founded at a time where branches was the core of the servicing system. So, my discussions with regulators, I am really encouraged them to, bring forth this debate with the legislators to really revisit CRA in a way that it comes to the 21st century, if you will, in terms of defining servicing. What's interesting about smartphones is that convenience redefining. The other thing that they have done, they have locked in the technology infrastructure. So a few years ago, we would be, or certainly before the iPhone, we would be talking about, well, are we going to do banking on the refrigerator, or are we going to do banking on your TV set, or is it going to be somewhere else? I mean, this may sound silly right now, but it was a big question way back then. So where is bank going to come? Digital banking, or many other things to you? Well, it turns out they're coming on your smartphone, they're coming on your handheld, and that is a way that has changed really a lot of thinking. So we can move a lot faster now, banks can. We don't have to reinvent the wheel, because we know the smartphone is the way to go. We also know that Apple and Google are going to be dictating what we're going to do from an infrastructure perspective. So if they decide that we're going to authenticate with the thumb, which is iPhone 5, guess what? That's how we're going to authenticate, right? And if you've been following all the hype about when is Apple going to turn on the near field communication antenna on their phone, which was iPhone 6. We've been waiting for that. That's when you can have a contactless transaction done. So they are dictating, and they're fixing, in a way, the highway for a lot of financials innovation to happen this day and age. So this is a very important thing to keep in mind. So to share some of our own data, we're seeing that the low and moderate income households are actually acquiring our products digitally more than the general population is. And this is a very interesting trend to keep in mind, because these are kind of scientific proof points as to what is a digital platform conducive to providing solutions that are relevant for low or moderate income individuals and communities. We think so, and that's one of the reasons we have developed an all-out, award-winning mobile platform over this past few years. To this day, we still have a BlackBerry app. If you have a BlackBerry, part of the dinosaur group that does. We have an app for that. We even have an app on the BlackBerry tablet, which you may have never heard of. So we did this. That's another thing. I talked about Florida and California about subprime, how that was a big trap when we developed our business in the earlier part of the decades. We also, the other thing that I'm very proud that we did is we saw the iPhone really being a home run from day one. And it was not an obvious thing to do because, all of us were addicted to the BlackBerry keyboard. And a lot of you were like, my fingers will never work on a keyboard-less device, right? And some people just went other way to plug even a keyboard into their iPhone. So I still need that keyboard. Well, we actually learned how to type and how to use Siri and other features like that. So being at the forefront of this wave has been great. We have a lot of firsts. We were the first bank with a native iPad app, if you can believe that. There are 6,000 banks out there. What that meant is when the iPad came out, a lot of folks were saying, well, I'll just put in a little, sort of symbol and it'll take you to the browser. We were the ones to really use the surface of the iPad for an app. The other thing that we're very proud of, we were the first bank to bring a full Spanish app on our mobile app. So you can actually bank with us entirely in Spanish, and we were the first ones. We're also the first ones to allow for enrollment on the phone directly, so that you didn't have to go to your online banking solution. So some of those things really make us stay ahead of the curve, and also we have, of course, the Apple Pay turned on. The other thing, and here's probably the dilemma of the U.S. banking industry. Look at this picture. This is the coolest feature in U.S. mobile banking. You see what it is? Now imagine that you lived in a different country in the planet, and you get to see this picture, and they're like, what's the deal? They're taking a picture of a handwritten check. Why didn't they wire the money in the first place? Why didn't they do a banking transfer? So this is the most advanced society technologically in the planet, and yet its banking system still using paper checks and stamps to transfer money among each other. So this is really the very interesting and very disconcerting place we are, which also creates a great opportunity. But of course, and I'll talk about this later, younger generations are really not focused on that paper check. By the way, a lot of folks say, well, I don't want to do a wire transfer because I want to give somebody my account number. Well, the account number happens to be in your check that you're sending right and left every day. So we have a lot of misconceptions about the security features of a check. But another thing that we see is that, or this slide's probably got two big messages here. One is that when I say our banking systems are not where the rest of society is, let me elaborate a bit more on that. It may sound like an unwarranted headline to you, but it isn't. We use systems in the US that are no real time. They're not real time. I'll talk about this more in a minute because we have developed the only real-time banking system that we know of among the major banks in the US. The system is built on dependency on external vendors. Everybody has the same solution. They're very commoditized. Your online banking at one bank is the same one as the next because they're actually run by the same company. Their mobile apps are run by the same companies as well. Therefore, we have very siloed vision by product. This is a tradition of the American banking industry. So, some of you have seen this. You go to a bank branch and want to talk about your credit card, and they say, well, no, this is not the place. Well, wait a minute. It says here, your bank. It's a different company, right? So all of that means that we have a lot of work to do on the technology side in the banks, and some of it is really way overdue. See the chip on the screen? I worked in France in '94, and they had chips on their cards in '94. Now you can do the math with me. That was 20 years ago that Europe had adopted chips on their cards. So I wouldn't describe chips as a new technology, will you? And yet we're one of the few countries in the planet that still doesn't have that. And it's costing us a fortune because guess what? All the fraud in the planet is done on US issued cards because we have the lowest security in our credit cards than anybody else does. So the other thing in the slide is this, a lot of folks have taken notice of this by now. That graph there shows you investment in fintech over the past 6 years. So this is the money, the private equity money, venture money, that's angel money that's going into startups that are really here to challenge and deconstruct the banking business. And this was, I saw this on The Economist. They had a survey a few weeks ago. If you're interested in this, you should read that. But this actually is a different source. They actually published it. You look at the exponential growth that's coming here. This is a very unique time we're in. So again, about BVA, what we did here is we gave ourselves the systems of the 21st century, the platforms that our solutions run on, our new code that we wrote from scratch. And we don't have the time to go into a lot of it, but the main feature is that our systems are real time. So I want to make you think about your banking right now. If you don't bank with BBVA Compass, this is what banking is like for you. You actually see things coming to your account during the day, they're being memo posted, and then sometime during the evening, during the night, your account is being settled. Your credits and debits are being posted in a certain order, and if you have an overdraft, that's when you're going to find out. Long story short. At BBVA Compass, your account works on the fly, in real time. So you see what we see at the same time that you see it. We see it. Our online time is all in sync. So this is a very relevant value proposition, because try to explain to a 15-year-old that your banking is batch processed. Do you imagine, would you think they would like to have their emails batch processed and released during the middle of the night? Now, this is an instantaneous economy we are in, and banks are still doing day 2 accounting. Now, they don't go to real time because it's very expensive. They have to change a lot of systems to be there. They have to change the way they think about cybersecurity. Of course, now, the only thing that's not real-time in banking by now is your checking account, because your credit card is real-time, everything else is. But it's a very, very interesting time. So we're excited about this. And then the other dynamic that you see here is that those individuals, and the picture you saw earlier, I mean, this is not uncommon to see 4 younger and some adults to this day and age all having a handheld and talking among themselves while they interact with the handheld. But the 2 other trends we see is that millennials hate banks, and millennials are really very, very adept at really starting to do the startup solutions. There's one Viacom study that says millennials are looking for ways to live bank-free. A third of them think that they don't need a bank account at all before the end of this decade. And then 2/3 of them would rather go to their dentist than their bank. So, millennials love fintech startups. And these fintech startups, you can think of them, traditional banks would probably think of them as the barbarians at the gate. These are all companies that are coming to eat our lunch. And I don't know what your favorite horror story is of a new economy coming in, deconstructing, disrupting something. You have Kodak, you have Nokia. I mean, there's so many examples. My favorite is Barnes & Noble. Because the publishing industry went down the drain, or is the process of going down the drain, and because somebody came up with the idea of Kindle, and Kindle, was a company. It was part of Amazon, and they brought us instantaneous book downloading, and you think of Borders. Borders is now gone, and a lot of cities in this country are struggling with having bookstores open for business. The ones that really got the wake-up call, if you think of it, is Barnes & Noble got the nuke, and therefore they were able to survive. And I use that because it's not only because I think here we have a defensive strategy, but also there is an opportunity to embrace this change and really move forward. And that's one of the things we've been doing at BBVA over the time. We have an office in San Francisco, and as part of that process, we have invested in companies and startups. These are some of the names where we have invested. We also have partnered up with companies like Duola and On Deck. You may have heard of this. This is our crowdfunding or new lending solutions. And then probably the more important one was our acquisition of Simple. And so I want to spend a second talking about Simple, because Simple was founded on the idea that that one needs to make sure that they were founded on the realization that, I didn't know this, but Americans' number one New Year resolution, contrary to my belief, is not losing weight and working out more, but it's saving more. So they founded the company and said, we have to really provide a banking solution that really allows people to take better control of their finances. So their main thing here is save to spend. They don't have an account balance. They give you this save to spend number that you actually are, based on an algorithm and your own goals that you set. They're telling you every day, well, your account balance may read $1,000, but it turns out that you save to spend only $25. And that's a very unique. People ask us, why did you buy Simple? Well, you could, with the money you paid for Simple, you should have written your own code. And we say, well, we don't know how to do what Simple does. We don't know how to create, a holistic, comprehensive millennial solution. We don't know how to do something viral other than problems. I mean, when we go, when our online banking is down, it gets viral. I can tell you that. But they get viral because they sell their product word of mouth. They don't advertise. And the other thing that they know how to do is they found a way to have their users fall in love with them. So I look at the reviews of their app, and people are saying, oh, you changed something yesterday. Something doesn't work. Change it, please. We love you. My reviews read, well, you changed something yesterday. What a bunch of losers. It doesn't work. It's pretty much the same process. Now, in the context of this, of course, and I'm running out of time here, we are recreating and revamping really our value proposition for underbanked, underserved. And this is the last section in my presentation where I wanted to show you what we've been doing there. So, because I'm probably going to fly through this, but you probably get the sense there's not rocket science here. There's really more a responsible business model around allowing clients that have financial needs to have access to them in ways that are affordable, that are simple, transparent, and that are convenient. So starting with keeping your money safe in the bank, we do that for free with free checking products. We also have revamped our suite of credit products, generally for this segment of our business. It's a very exciting time to do this as well because there are a lot of companies innovating. I mentioned On Deck earlier. We are also partnering up with other companies that are really very doing a lot of new work around the credit on the credit side, and very responsible credit. And we also partner with EverFi, for instance, to provide a lot of the financial education that we are now building into our loan approval process. That we really want to make sure that some of our borrowers really are exposed to a responsible financial education. Another area that I'm sorry that I'm going to start talking faster because I realize I ran out of time, so I'm just going to hit on a few thoughts here. Another area where the world is changing is on the marketing side, and we probably could be talking hours about this. We don't watch the ads like we used to, and certainly the young people don't watch the ads at all. So how do you tell your story? It's very hard. One of the things we've done at BBVA, we started to attach our brand to content that people are passionate about. We've chosen sports like the NBA. We are the official bank of the NBA, and we're creating solutions and products based on that. But the other thing is that the marketing activities shifted so dramatically that most banks don't really know how to do digital marketing. And this is a confession I'll make here. It really is uncharted territory that we're all having to learn. And it is also a great opportunity, not only to be effective at digital marketing, but also be able to reach out to the right communities and the right groups of individuals. And we're kind of really reinventing the wheel of how we get out and connect with all these individuals as we are rolling out down payment assistance programs, first-time home buyers. We are rethinking how do we get to those individuals through our digital marketing activities. And it's really a brave new world out there, a very exciting brave new world where there's a lot of exploration. Okay, I'm really going to skip through this because I'm out of time formally, and I want to keep you on your agenda. We are doing a lot of financial education as well. Even our signature program, which is the MBA sponsorship, we do partner up with them on MBA Cares. We actually pay for all the activities, and they bring the players. The players get all the pictures. Of course, the bankers they're much taller than us to begin with. So, but the MBA is really another program that we're doing, but this is some of the data around financial education. And we have also turned financial education. This is our latest financial fitness center landing page that we have just rolled out recently to really build a more robust engine to allow clients not just to serve their financial needs, but also educate their financial muscle. I'll stop with this last slide, and this is a very, I love this slide. Now, do you remember where this is from? Have you seen this movie? Avatar. Avatar is a movie that really came out in the midst of the financial crisis. Now, and hopefully you've seen the movie because we don't have time to go through it, like what the story is about. But what I want to focus on this slide is, do you remember who the bad guys were in this movie? You do? Well, normally, movies for a long time have been the bad guys, have been the communists or the Germans, the Nazis. Or this movie, the bad guys are a bunch of corporate officers. It's corporate. I would say corporate America. It's a metaphor for corporate America. And the bad guys in this movie look like a regular, maybe a stereotype of a bank employee would look like. And the logic of the decisions they make in the movie is the logic of kind of like cost benefit, what a lot of people associate with, cold, abstract corporate decision making. So when I saw this movie, really, the movie is very touching, it's very inspiring, but it dawned on me like I was really depressed because I thought if this is a metaphor for what our society is thinking about corporations, we have a problem. We really have a very severe problem because we are portraying that there's a heartless and a out-of-touch group of individuals. They're probably just thinking about shareholders and dividends and so on and so forth, and they're not really keeping in sync with the beautiful things of life and the really meaningful things of life. So I always talked about this to my employees. I use this slide all the time to remind them that we have also an opportunity here and we do that as part of our DNA in our business and day-to-day to really factor in the future of all our stakeholders, our clients and our employees and our shareholders. So that's my presentation today. Again, I try to give you probably it's a bit of a roller coaster of a presentation going over the banking, our own company, what we've been doing, upgrading our core banking systems. That's needed really to create that 21st century kind of platform on which we can develop new solutions that are relevant for millennials that have created a platform to have a better ability to serve underserved, underbanked individuals in this country, and some of that, of course, is applicable overseas as well as from our organization. So with that, I thank you for the opportunity to be here, and have a great Friday.